Hi, my name is Shelly, and this is my story. I am in pain all the time. I am resilient. I have an amazing husband, an amazing family. I'm so lucky to be alive. Be encouraged. It'll get better. Hi everyone, Shelly here with Life Creates Art. Thank you for joining me. I wanted to come on here for my birthday, and my birthday is very, very important to me, and I want to share my story with you. I will keep it as brief as possible, but have you ever experienced something in your life that you just felt like you were never going to get over? And maybe physically or emotionally. Those things that happen in your life, they happen. I mean, it happens in life. But we have to decide on what we're going to do with it when we're in it, how we're going to get out of it. Your life will be changed dramatically from that moment on. But how you respond to it is what's important. And I'm a testimony to that. So it all started back in 1989, and I was having serious sinus trouble. Went to a doctor. I wasn't really comfortable with him, but went with him anyway, and should have followed my gut. He cleaned out my sinuses, and a few days later, I got a call from the hospital saying that they had found brain tissue in what they took out of my sinuses. So I immediately had to go up to UCSF, and they checked, and they realized that the doctor had penetrated the thin bone that separates the sinuses from the brain, and the doctor had broken holes there. And the left side had patched itself on its own, but the right side was an open hole, which means my cerebral spinal fluid that surrounds my brain and goes down your spine was leaking out of my nose. So what I had to do was I had to have it patched. They went in through the side. I have 2 scars right here. Went in through the side, and they patched that with using a little blood and glue. Nothing happened. I am a mother of 5 beautiful children, and at that time I had no children when that happened, but then I had 1, 2, 3 children, lost a baby in between, which is also one of the most difficult things I've ever gone through, and then got pregnant with my 4th child. 6 months into that, we knew she was a girl at that point, but 6 months into that, I woke up and I had a massive headache, and it turns out I had spinal meningitis. If some of you who don't know what spinal meningitis is, it is an infection of the meninges and your spinal fluid that surrounds your brain and in your spinal cord. It actually gets infected, and 85% of everyone who gets meningitis dies. Out of the 15% that is left, 10% of those people are left with some debilitating illness, headaches all the time, ringing in the ears, even mental retardation. They're not ever quite the same again. Speech impediments, loss of limbs, not be able to walk and talk. And I was 6 months along with my daughter, and I was rushed into, of course, the hospital. They had to open up my head, so obviously my brain could swell, and they put a stent in to my head and sat my family down with the chaplain, letting them know that, of course, they had to be concerned about the baby, but they had to save my life, and they weren't sure that they could. The spinal meningitis was so bad that my spinal fluid was actually more like a thick, almost pasty, they said. And so they didn't know where I was going to be on the other end. When I woke up from that, my daughter was still in the womb, and she seemed to be doing fine. But I couldn't recognize my husband. I didn't recognize my family members. And I was very, very sort of spacey, where it took me a long time to process information. Anything that was said to me, it would take me a long, long time to process it. And everything moved very fast. And my speech was affected, which I had to take speech and occupational therapy after that, because here I was a mother and I actually homeschooled my kids at the time. Somebody else was homeschooling them during this time. And I couldn't speak. I didn't know how to spell my name anymore. My oldest son was 6 years old and he taught me how to write my name again. And that's how bad it had affected my brain. And then it took me about 8 months to recover from that, but I never quite recovered. I fell into a deep depression after that, and I had headaches just like crazy, constant. Everything was moving very fast for me. Again, every time we would drive on a freeway or something, I would have to close my eyes. And I compare it to, as I have an autistic son, I compare it to almost being autistic, because I still to this day cannot handle strobe lights. And anything that went fast, if we went fast in the freeway, if my children were running around like crazy, I would sort of shut down. My brain just could not process it and handle it. That took me about 8 months to recover from that. But in between that time, I was having these massive headaches. So they sent me back up to UC San Francisco, and they found out that the left side that had closed on its own had blown open a 7 millimeter by 4 millimeter hole. So they had to go back in and patch it. My brain was actually sagging through into my sinuses. And if you can imagine that, saggy brain syndrome. And so they, of course, went back in and patched that up. After that, about a month and a half later, I woke up. I don't even remember the circumstances because I hardly remember this case, but I had spinal meningitis again. Fortunately, then I knew what to look for. Anytime I would get a migraine, I would have to be taking my temperature. I've had more spinal taps than I have fingers and toes, because anytime I had sinus trouble, migraine mixed with a fever, they were giving me a spinal tap. And so this time I did have it. I don't remember it. It wasn't as bad as the first one because I knew what to look for. So they caught it early. So then I had during that time, that spinal meningitis, the second one, I had a grand mal seizure, which caused me to sort of be in this process after I recovered of having these, what I called shutdowns. So anytime I would get really overwhelmed, I would just shut down and I would not be able to communicate with my family. I could see them communicating with me, mommy, 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 and I could not respond. And it was the craziest thing. And so I wasn't on the ground having seizures and things like that, but they were definite shutdowns. So that lasted. Of course, I was on seizure medication for a long time. And it was during this time that I started, I was involved in a church. I am a minister, and I have been for many years now. And I was involved in church at that time and started going to Bible school, in correspondence Bible school. And then, of course, I've had all these children. I've got 4 kids at the time, have my 5th child, my last baby. And Andrew was 5 months old when it was a day after Easter. I'll never forget it. I woke up again and I had spinal meningitis again. And this one was almost as bad as the first one. And I remember my family, of course, all 3 times the chaplain would sit down with my family and say, hey, we don't know. We don't know if she's going to make it. I mean, the odds are, of course, this time they say the odds are she's had it twice already. So we're not sure. So this one was almost as bad. And so I did again. I went into a great depression afterwards, incredible pain, and went back up to UCSF. And my doctor said, look, Shelly, we don't know how you've survived having spinal meningitis 3 times. We really don't know, let alone walking and talking. And on that note, what I am left with is the speech impediment. And I took speech and occupational therapy for that. I had to learn how to memorize phone numbers and things like that. And really, it sort of revamped how I learn, because I have to take ample notes. I know that that is my new normal. I talked to you at the beginning about how when something happens in your life, you have to just, it's what you do with it that will cause you to move forward or stay stagnant and stay where you are. I knew that I had to relearn how to learn. And so when I do learn, I have to take notes. I'm not necessarily a strong visual learner anymore like I was. I have to write things down and practice them and practice them and practice them. And then of course I've got it and I'm good to go. Also, I lost a nerve in my lip. You see, I can't pucker, so that's kind of dead. And I have a third hearing loss in my right ear. And so that was all just from the first meningitis, actually. But the second and third did not help. So the third one was just about as bad. And after that surgery, after that meningitis, they had to patch the holes for good. And so they went back up to UCSF. They cut me from ear to ear, of course, shaved my head, cut me from ear to ear, folded back my forehead, took off my forehead bone, and took out a piece of muscle from my forehead and lifted up my brain, slid it right under my brain to patch those holes that are there. I no longer have the sense of smell, but that's okay. I don't have to check my temperature every time I have a migraine now, which I do have migraines a lot. I have the condition, the neurologist said is the conditioned migraine. And I have headaches 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Those have never gone away. Since 1997, I have had a headache, and it is what you do with it that is important. And with your art, I pour a lot of my pain into my art. I pour a lot of depression, things that I've experienced, because I understand depression. I've been there. And I put a lot of that into my art. I can't draw to this day, I still can't draw a self-portrait without my brain hanging out or scars and all of that. So there was things that happened in between as well. I've got 2 scars on my neck from having C3 through 7, and my neck is completely fused. So I've got 8 screws in my head and 10 in my neck. And then of course, in 2012, my mother passed away, and which was the most devastating thing that's ever happened to me to this day. And I tell you, when I sit down at a canvas, my whole life gets poured out. I was telling my husband just the other day that if I don't stop creating for myself and this therapy, I'll probably never be able to sell a painting, because they're all sort of therapeutic for me. And that's okay, because, Frida Kahlo did the same thing. And look at her. So she was very successful. So I'm just going to keep painting. That's why I created this channel, to be able to pour my life and what I've done and how I've succeeded. I am a very successful, and I've grown so much, and of course recovered, have come so far. I'm alive. And that's why I'm doing this video, is because every time my birthday comes around, it's sort of like a New Year's Day to me. My birthday, I contemplate everything that I've experienced and how lucky I am to be alive. I've almost died 4 times. Well, 3 times I told you about. The last time was when I had pulmonary embolisms and blood clots in my leg, and I'm lucky to have my leg. I mean, I'm just a lucky woman, and I'm so glad to be here to be able to tell you about this, and so glad to be here to tell you that no matter what you're going through, like I said, I'm in pain all the time, and sometimes it's worse. Sometimes I can't create, but every time I possibly can, I'm in front of a canvas or in front of my sketchbook, and I'm drawing and I'm painting, and I put my whole heart into it. And it's a respite for me. When I have a canvas in front of me and I'm painting, the whole world disappears and it goes away. My pain disappears, it goes away. I don't even think about it. And so art is very, very important to me. And I want to encourage you to keep going no matter what you're going through. My mom always used to say to me, this too shall pass, and it will. And keep going, keep pressing on, and I'm here for you, and I'm here with you. And just know that I've been an artist for 27 years, but I've also gone through an incredible amount of pain, and I've healed and recovered in such a big way. And you can too. I don't think that there's any can't in the dictionary. I think there probably is, but I don't think there's any can't. There's not a can't in my dictionary. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And I want you to be encouraged with your life and your art. So keep going, and I'm here with you. And thank you for letting me share my story with you, a story of great success and healing. And I hope you like it. And if you do, or if this encourages you, please leave in the comments below. Like and subscribe. And I love you guys. I'm here for you. All right. Bye-bye.